Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to learn about artist Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia was an artist that grew up in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. She spent a lot of time outdoors, and she knew early on that she wanted to be an artist when she grew up. She moved around a little bit during her lifetime, spending some time in New York and also Lake George area. And eventually, Georgia found her way to New Mexico, where she fell in love with the desert landscape. She purchased a property there known as Ghost Ranch, where she stayed in the fall and the winter. There, she loved painting the sun-bleached animal bones she would collect on her walks, and in the spring and the summer, she would live at her second home in Abiquiu. Abiquiu home provided even more subject matter for her art, including many of her landscapes, which is what we're going to create today. So let's get started by taking a look at the materials that we will need. We simply need crayons, a black crayon, and some paper. If you want to use additional materials to embellish your art after, of course, you are always welcome to do so. So let's get started. We're going to just take a look at what an adobe house looks like, which is the type of house that you might see in New Mexico. Notice that they are stone structures, and they are generally, they have these little wooden posts that will sometimes stick out, some simple designs for windows and doors, and often this kind of stacked. They look kind of like a birthday cake. And that's what we're going to use as our inspiration today. So I'm going to grab my black crayon to start with, or some kind of Sharpie or something that you can have to outline your picture. And we're going to begin by talking a little bit about what a landscape serves to have. So all landscapes have three very important elements. They have the foreground, which is what's closest to you and often quite large. Then you have the middle ground, where you will often find your horizon line. And you'll know that above the horizon line, you'll have what's in the background, which is oftentimes hills or mountains or the sunset in the sky. So we're going to use that little rule of thumb in order to create our own landscape today. So let's think about holding our paper horizontal, like a window this time. And let's think about what we're going to put in the very foreground of our picture. Those are the things that are quite large and bigger than what you would see in the background. So I'm going to start at the foreground by using some vegetation, some things that you might see if you were in New Mexico. So a lot of these really flat-leafed plants that have these stacked leaves. I'm just going to fan some out over on this side, on that side. And you can see how it's right at the very front, right off the edge of the paper. I might also have some more vegetation over here. Maybe could be some kind of a cactus or some kind of other plant life. And I'm going to use some smaller lines to create some rocks or maybe some stones or some different elements that you might find in the earth. So now I'm going to think about where I'm going to make my adobe structure. So right in here, which is heading towards that middle area of my paper, is where I'd like to put my adobe. So remember, there's a lot of different types of adobe structures you can make. They don't always all look the same, but they have some of the same elements, which are those rounded stacked lines. There you see, remember the bright blue wooden poles. Sometimes they kind of look like stairs climbing up. So we're going to use those elements in our design as well. If yours doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. I'm going to keep this kind of off to the side so that you might be able to include some of these other elements in what you choose to do. All right. There we go. So now we're going to create, I would like to, I guess, the base or the bottom of my structure. So I'm going to leave some space in here, maybe just put a little of my bottom line going right across like this. So this is what my basic structure is going to look like. Now I'm just going to make a line that kind of goes up a little bit on both sides, in on both sides, up again, in, and I'm going to do it one more time. Again, as I referenced, kind of has an element of birthday cake kind of quality to it. Now I'm going to create that maybe a window or something in the top floor. And also I liked that those brightly colored poles that were sticking out, that would be the ends of those poles. And now I'm going to create the door, like an upside down U, and some windows, which are your basic rectangle shape. Now we're going to kick this up a notch by adding some element of 3D to it. So start right in the middle of your door, and then we're going to create that echo line that's going to come right down. And already it looks like, oh wait, you can walk through that door. Same thing on the windows. I'm going to start on one side and kind of echo that shape at the top, kind of like an L on both sides. So now you could even do the same on the window that's up above. Just a little echo right there. Awesome. Okay, now I'm going to add just some more of that rocks and ground line. So my Adobe doesn't look like it's floating. So maybe I have another one of those plants right here in the center. Maybe there's a prickly pear over here, cacti. One or two, I'll make two. So now that I have some of that vegetation and my Adobe, I'm going to create that horizon line. So remember we talked about the horizon line being what breaks up your sky and your land or your ground. So here I have what's in the foreground and what's in the background. So I just made a line on either side of my structure, and behind that I'm going to put some low kind of hills, just maybe overlapping a little, maybe on this side, nice low, going right off the paper. So there I have my hills. Now I want to create some mountains. I'm going to give you a little tip so that we don't end up with mountains that look like shark teeth. We're going to use our fingers and place them on the piece of paper. And I'm just going to trace around my fingers ever so loosely. Ah, good mountain structure. Same thing, I might put another one over here. Just loosely around my finger. There's another one. And I'm going to add a setting sun in the back as well. So I'm going to put that sun, not a hill. This one is, I'm going to create that to be a sun that's setting. Maybe another mountain over here. There we go. Awesome. All right, so now that I have my composition, I'm ready to add some color. So you can simply use crayons and shading to color in your picture. And you can remember you want to include all the elements that are in the foreground, the middle ground, and the background, so that when you are finished, you might end up with something that looks like this. I hope that you enjoyed making some Adobe style homes that you would find in New Mexico and learning about the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. Keep on creating, friends.